Hello everyone, it's Silvia from Villa Tarot. Welcome to my channel. So today we're going to have a bit of a preview of what one of the perks of my memberships that I will launch in September will be. So it will be a membership in 3 tiers. The first tier will be, let's say, more of a supportive kind of tier for my channel, although it will still have perks and benefits. But starting from the second tier, you will have access, let's say, before everyone else, before the general public, to my rehoming videos. Now, every month, I will do a video in which I will show you all of the decks that I'm going to be rehoming, that I'm going to sell. In that particular month, and you'll have basically a walkthrough of all of the decks. I'll describe the decks to you. I will tell you my opinion on the decks. Obviously these will be decks that I will be rehoming, so it's evidently decks that either have had a place in my collection at the time, and that time has come for me to move them on to someone else, or for some reason they just didn't resonate with me. And there's absolutely no judgment. This is a non-judgmental space, and I just want to make sure that you understand that the fact that I'm rehoming a deck doesn't mean anything about the author, the artwork, the quality. It's just personal. We're all different. We all have different tastes when it comes to pretty much anything in life. And one of the things that I really believe in is that when I don't use a deck and it just stays on the shelves gathering dust, it's actually kind of disrespectful for me to keep it. I should better, move it on to someone else who is going to love them. So that's my philosophy behind this. And these videos will be, if you will become members of my channel, the tier 2, the second tier, will have an early access to these videos. Therefore, you will have a possibility to reach out to me and ask me whether you want to purchase one of these decks. Let's have a look at this one. Now, for what for today, for example, these will be probably already gone by the time in which I post this video, because I have so many decks coming. I shipped something like 30 decks out of northern Thailand, and they are going to come in the next couple of weeks, probably even less. And I just don't have room enough, and I'm just realizing that I need to move things on a little bit quicker. So by the time, hopefully, by the time I will be posting this video, you can still reach out to me to my email, of course. But chances are that, at least I hope that these decks will be gone by then. If they're not, of course, reach out to me and we'll talk. Let's have a look at what decks I'm going to rehome in the month of August. Now, let's start with the Tarot of Tales, with a really big box, with the booklet as well. It's actually a companion guidebook. This is by Melinda Leholm, and the illustrations are by Ron Daniel Eason. This deck, if you don't know it, well, it's actually mass market produced by Psycho Books, and if you don't know this deck, it's all about fairy tales, basically, like the name would suggest. Let me just zoom in. I bought this deck, and I have to be honest, so in all of these videos I will tell you exactly how much I use the decks, and how much or little I used the decks. I have to say, I will show you if there's any kind of defects, flaws, or damages. I will definitely make you aware of that. And these decks will all be sold as is. And unfortunately, for shipping cost reason than anything else, I cannot actually accept returns. So I really invite you to be 100% certain about the purchase if you want to go ahead with it, especially if you live overseas. Now, this deck is actually very interesting. It's got a story, a fairy tale for each and every one of these cards. What happens is that every time that I get a deck like that, I am super enthusiastic about it at first. I look at it and then I look at it again, and then perhaps again and again, and I try to work with it And for some reason, whenever is a deck of this type, you know, a deck that has a different story for each and every card, but it's a story that doesn't necessarily, the meaning of the story doesn't necessarily jump at you, like in this case and like in other cases, I always end up rehoming them. And it's not because I don't like them, because as I said, it's a beautiful deck. The artwork is absolutely gorgeous. The cardstock, I've had people complaining about it. I've had people adoring it. Personally, I like it. It's a bit papery, but it's not the kind of weak paper. It's not the fragile paper. It's a sturdy one. As you can see, it's got some bounce on it. These are the backs, by the way. They're quite beautiful. I'm not a super fan of the borders. I think that, you know, these ones could have been enough on their own. We didn't necessarily need the black borders on top of the intricated, you know, ones that you find there. But I mean, there's a number of reasons why sometimes you have two types of borders, like skirting borders to your walls. As you can see, I hope you can understand the reason why I'm rehoming this. So it's just that it will take a very huge commitment from my side, which I really don't have the time for, to delve into the guidebook and learn about all of these stories, which I actually try to do, but unfortunately I don't know any of these stories, or very few of them. Therefore, you know, every time it's like learning 78 stories, which would be amazing. Again, would be amazing if I had the time. But recently, I'm really dedicating myself to my practice and my channel, and it's slowly becoming my main profession. And I just, unfortunately, I don't have time to delve deeper into this deck. And it's such a pity for me not to do that, not to have the time to do that. So what happens is that at the end of the day, this deck is staying on the shelf, it's not being used, and it's just a pity. It's disrespectful, as I said before, to the artist, in the sense that they obviously created the deck for people to use it, to admire it for sure, but also to use it, to have, you know, to do whatever you need to do with the tarot deck. So what I'm going to do, I'm definitely going to rehome this deck. It's fairly new in the sense that I have actually used it probably once or twice. The conditions are excellent, and contrary to a lot of people, I even kept the sleeve, as you can see. Even though I've heard a lot of people complaining that it's a very tight sleeve and it's almost impossible to actually remove it without breaking it, my edition did not have that issue. As you can see, it's very easy to remove. And so obviously it comes with the sleeve as well. So this is the Tarot Odd Tales. So the second deck that I'm going to rehome in the month of August is the Essential Oils Healing Deck, 52 cards to enhance body, mind and spirit, by Michelle Shofro-Cook. Now this deck is actually being used quite a fair bit. I think I've shown this deck in my channel a few times. And the simple reason why I'm rehoming this is because I just realized that I have 4 or 5 decks that focus on plants or curative, you know, plants and essential oils. And I even have a deck that looks into the curative, therapeutic benefits of the flowers of Bach. And therefore, I just realized that by, you know, there's actually a couple of decks. One is an Italian deck that actually looks into essential oils, and it's got a very interesting guidebook, and the artwork is fantastic. And I'm referring to Le Essenziali, so the essentials, by Stefania Zani. And that deck has got pretty much everything. So even though I really like, and I always talk about this deck because I really adore the artwork, and the choice of colors is just absolutely spectacular. I do feel that if I want, you know, I need to be honest and I need to be realistic with myself. I just don't have enough room to keep 4 or 5 different decks that deal with the same subject. And so obviously out of these 4 or 5, I have just decided to keep 1 or 2, so the others will be rehomed. It also is, you know, it weighs in on the fact that this is a mass market produced deck, and it's very easily available. It's a very reasonable price as well, and therefore it makes it so that if I eventually want to buy it again because I regret my choice of rehoming it, it's not one of those decks that can go out of print, and it will therefore become difficult. So this is definitely a deck that has been used a lot, therefore obviously the price will reflect that, because I'm not going to charge you a premium price for a deck that has actually been used a few times. So this is the Essential Oils Healing deck. And another deck that has a bit of a similar story is the Priestess of Light Oracle by Sandra Ann Taylor and Kimberly Weber. This deck is absolutely gorgeous. I have used this deck a few times, although it's still, it's got a, it's in excellent condition, as you can tell. There's no bend, no warping, no chipping on the edges, and absolutely no damage to the cards whatsoever. And the booklet is also really in excellent conditions. It looks almost as if it hasn't been used, and the reason why is whenever I read from the guidebook, I always do like this, and I always take care not to break the spine. So I just literally do like that, and that does not damage the guidebook. This deck is amazing. However, for some reason, I find the distress kind of filter that has been applied to the artwork not to my taste, not to my liking, and it's a bit of a heartbreak, because the keywords are amazing. There's actually always 3 or 4 keywords, which is rather important. I really love the artwork, and I find the guidebook very interesting. However, I do have the impression that there has been this over manipulation, or in Photoshop, following the artwork, the creation of the deck. And in many cards, especially this one, for example, I don't know if I make any sense because I'm actually keeping it at a distance from the camera, but if I put it a little bit closer, you will see what I mean. So this is a distress filter. It used to be very popular about 10-15 years ago, when they were very popular in photo apps. Whenever you had the first smartphones, this kind of distressing or patterning as well, layering of patterns was very popular, and everyone was doing it, me included. But I think that is a bit dated, and it doesn't have, because it's not the same on each and every card. Some other cards have a lot less of that, and I don't really understand why there is this kind of choice that has been done. So this one doesn't have any of that distressing filter at all, and this one neither. And then you go to a card like this one, which is basically 100% of that. And again, this is just my personal opinion, so please hold your gun. It's just a way in which I relate to a deck, and I bond to it or I do not bond to it. If this deck had been made, if all of the cards were like this, I would absolutely love this deck. But unfortunately, because it's a bit of a mix, as you can tell, it's a bit distracting for me to use. And that's the main reason why I'm going to rehome this deck. So this is the Priestess of Light Oracle by Sandra Ann Taylor and Kimberly Weber. And another deck is the Secret Rebels Oracle by Lana Fairchild, and the artwork is by Autumn Sky. Now this one is a really beautiful deck. Just so you know, it's a Blue Angel publication. Blue Angel is going to be doing a bit of a, how should I say, revolution to the cardstock of all of its decks. And even though I have absolutely no reason to believe that they're going to reprint this deck, so I'm just going on a hunch here, I think that they will reprint many of the popular decks that they have, it is my hope that they will, and therefore I'm kind of waiting to see whether they will reprint this deck or not. What I do like a lot about this deck is the gray figures. So you have splashes of colors, but the figures in particular are actually gray. And that means a lot to me because there is another deck that does exactly the same, and it's the Savvy Soul Tarot. So ironically, because of this reason, this deck pairs up really well with the Savvy Soul Tarot. So if you have the Savvy Soul Tarot, if you're interested in acquiring it, I honestly don't know whether it's still on stock or not at Julie's, but it is worth a try to get in touch with her. The reason why I'm rehoming this, as I said before, is because I'm kind of hoping that they will reprint it, and for the time being I have other decks that actually cover this kind of work, which is amazing because the Sacred Rebels applies to our own mind, spirit and body, and I use this deck a lot whenever I want a send-off message after a very complex or intense kind of reading for my clients, and I find that many of my clients actually appreciate that. But recently I find other decks that are actually doing that for me and for the clients as well. So as I said, again, I have no reason to believe that this deck is going to be republished with a new cardstock by Blue Angel, which, by the way, just to give you a reference, it's the cardstock. If you're looking to purchase, or you already purchased, the Sisters of the Sea by Blue Angel, that's what I mean for the new Blue Angel cardstock. So it's slightly thinner, so less stiff than this. It's got the same type of matte and very, very glorious buttery feel to it, more than this. And the reason why I actually prefer it is because these cards still tend to stick to each other, even though I actually use this deck a fair bit. They still stick to each other when I do this. As you can tell, I can't even separate them. So the new cardstock, the one, for example, of the Sisters of the Sea, is much easier to fan out. I have that deck, I received it yesterday, and I really wanted to check what the cardstock was like, and I was really, really happy to see that it's absolutely gorgeous. So this is the Sacred Rebels Oracle, Alana for Child, and Autumn Sky. And the next deck that I'm going to rehome is the Grunge Tarot by Francesca Matteoni and Andrea Moresco. Now, the reason why I'm rehoming this deck is probably because it's very much a deck that I bought when I did the 90s Are Back video, and I really felt like, obviously, my way of viewing the 90s definitely included the grunge movement. Not that I was part of it, because, you know, in the 90s I was actually in London, and in London there was a bit of a battle against grunge, but I absolutely loved Nirvana and, you know, and Pearl Jam. And obviously what happened was that, you know, I really got into it probably after I left London, and I got more interested in American culture. Now, the reason why I'm rehoming this deck is simply because of the cardstock. It's not my favorite. It's the kind of glossy that really reflects the light, and it's slightly oversized, let's say, compared to the decks that I usually feel comfortable in shuffling. And I'm sorry to say that lately, I hope that it's just temporary. In fact, I'm pretty sure, and I want to be positive to say that it's just temporary, but I've had a lot of pain in my hands. And so I have to consider this from now on whenever there's a deck that is actually too large, too, you know, big in whatever way. And this is just actually difficult to handle for me. There's something else. There's a kind of a limited color palette, which is absolutely fine because it does remind me of, you know, the whole thing about grunge was about the browns and the army green colors, right? So it's actually quite, it's thematic as well, but it's just not my favorite. And the Three of Swords is just a typical heart with the swords in it, which is not my favorite either. I have nothing against this deck. Again, it was, you know, a purchase that I made when I did my the 90s Are Back video, and I've actually never even looked at it after that. So I asked myself, okay, but I'm pretty sure that someone would definitely enjoy this deck if they had it in their collection, and therefore I'm just gonna, you know, let it go. So this is the Grunge Tarot. And the next deck is a bit of a painful thing for me because it's the Literary Witches Oracle, which is something that I absolutely adore. The idea of you know, women writers, first of all, I love that because I'm a writer myself. And also the fact that, you know, they were not just writers, but they were literally witches, which is amazing. It's been written by Taisia Kitaiskaya. Yeah, I think I pronounced it correctly. Sorry if I'm not. And it's been illustrated by Katie Horan. This is a bit painful for me because I had this deck twice before. I really love everything about the first part of the deck, so I'm just gonna show you. So just if you have this deck, you'll understand what I mean. So I really love all of the cards that are depicting the literally witches, and on top of everything, it's got a really gorgeous linen or sort of linen printed cardstock. I love the colors. I love the you know, artwork is amazing. I love the use of, you know, the presence and the absence and the symbols in the cards. And I really love the fact that you don't just have the name of the person depicted on the card, but you also have a keyword associated to it. And if this deck, if they republish this deck in a smaller format, probably that will help as well, but that wouldn't matter. But if they republish this one just with these cards, so the cards referring back to the literary witches, but, you know, perhaps 44 cards like that, I would definitely keep it. And I will be super duper happy to use it. I will find a lot of pairings for it. I will find a lot of ways to utilize these cards. And I would really love it. And I do. I love this part of the deck. But then, unfortunately, and it's just, again, this is my own personal opinion. Please don't shoot, because it's just a matter of, you know, myself bonding or not bonding with the deck. And I know that there's a lot of you that love this deck, and you're absolutely right. It's absolutely lovable. It's just that when we come to this, I know that these are the witches' familiars, and I know that there's a kind of an oracle feel to it, or a Normandy more like oracle feel to it, and I know that, you know, it can be used that way, or it can be used in an intuitive way, or it can be used in any other way you feel like using this. And the images are actually good. I like them. I like the artwork in them, and it reminds me a lot of, you know, looking at this now, I'm thinking to myself, I could actually pair these cards with all of the Seasons of the Witch oracles, because they would pair up really well, because it is more or less that kind of style. However, I don't have any use for this, and it's actually the majority of the cards. And I'm not being a Karen, I'm just giving you a reason why I'm going to rehome this deck. And it's nothing wrong with it. It's just, to me, the level of resonance is just not there. So I want to give it to someone who will actually appreciate it. This is the Literary Witches Oracle. And this deck is going to come as a shock. I understand that. It's the Fyodor Pablo Tarot, but this is the mass market edition. And again, it's one of those decks that it's absolutely gorgeous, so beautiful, so beautiful. That it's kind of a heartbreaking thing for me to give it away. And then, and also because the product value is amazing, because the 2 pieces box, the guidebook, the companion guidebook, which is a quality of a coffee table book. Seriously, it's amazing. You know, the cards themselves are fantastic. The quality, I mean, the gilding is amazing, but as you can see, I have never used it because the gilding is basically 100%, is not chipped at all, and this is one of the ones that actually gets chipped quite a lot. It's got these stars which are actually gold foil on the back, and I really like it. I absolutely like it. There's no two ways around that. Why am I rehoming it? I'm not using it. Why am I not using it? First of all, the color association to me is a bit odd. And please understand, I'm not being difficult at all. It's just my brain is set in a certain way. And in order for me to, let's say, bond with the deck, enjoy it, practice with it, etc., I'm kind of set in my ways. It's my problem. It's not enough elasticity. I should work on that. But I definitely do not associate red with the source. I don't associate blue. Well, perhaps blue with cups, but definitely not green with wands. I don't know. It's just something that, to me, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Some of the cards are so absolutely gorgeous. There is nudity, by the way, in this deck, just for you to know. Some of the cards are just so absolutely gorgeous that it is very painful for me to actually part ways with this deck. It's just the color association, it's just not there. And you know, and also perhaps also the Three of Swords. I don't know. I'm very. It's very difficult for me to actually realize whether I want to keep it or not, because looking at it, I keep on thinking to myself, this deck is really gorgeous, what are you doing? This deck is amazing, what are you doing? But I don't use it. And it has been moved to my Purgatory shelf a number of times, and then because I was looking at it whenever I was deciding whether to rehome it or not, it always made it back to the normal shelves, and then it just stayed there gathering dust. This is my favorite Five of Cups of all times. Anyway, in any case, look, this is going to be rehomed. It's a US Games publication. It's not the original indie one. Therefore, you know, it's also for me, it's a consolation to know that if one day I will really miss it so much that I want to use it and I want to buy it again, I will be able to. Although it's a bit of an expensive deck, even though it's a mass market deck. I think it's one of the most expensive mass market decks I've ever bought. But anyway, there you go. This is me just bearing my soul to you. This is the Fyodor Pavlov Tarot. Now, the next deck is an oracle deck. It's the Healing Heart Oracle, and it's a really fantastic cooperation between Ina Siegel and Jenna della Grottaglia. These are love letters to your soul, and that is merely the reason why I'm rehoming it, even though probably I'm telling a lie, because there is another issue that I have with this deck. It's not a massive issue, and for me, it's not a massive issue, but I know that for the tarot community, it is becoming a massive issue. This deck has been used probably twice, 3 times tops. It's gilded. It's a kind of a matte gold gilding. It's an excellent quality. The Rockpool, this is Rockpool publication. Rockpool really upped their antes when it comes to value in their products lately. The reason why, there you go, that's probably one of the first cards that I wanted to point out to you. So the keywords are, or rather, the messages are always focusing on the heart, because it's the Healing Heart Oracle, which is absolutely fine. I like that they're on the side like that. I don't mind it at all. There's another Oracle deck by Rockpool. I think it's called the Spirit Nature. Sorry, I don't remember, but it's also a recent publication. And it's got the same setup. However, these are actual messages. So when you're like this, you tend to imagine you're just going through the deck. Let's keep these aside. You're just going through the deck and you just look at the images, and they're amazing. And then you see this, and the problem with this is that most of the messages are actually rather long. So you have a definition for the particular heart. So each and every one of the cards talks about a heart. So this is the longing heart. And then it's got a smaller print message, value what you have and more will appear. I've got nothing against that. It's a really beautiful phrase. I really agree with that as well. However, because it's on the side and it's a long one, it kind of distracts you because you really have to tilt the card this way, and that lifts me off the reading. That's just me, okay? It's again, it's the way my brain is wired. If there are, you know, stuff like that happening on the cards, I tend to get distracted, and perhaps that's not the thing that I want to do while using this deck. I need to be inside the deck. I need to be with the deck, and breaking the bond with the deck by, you know, having me just either choose whether to read the sentence or looking at the card. I cannot do both at the same time. So it's kind of hurting my practice when I do that. But there's another issue, and this is a bit of a spiky one. So you have cards like this, and it looks absolutely fine. It's I have no reason to believe that there's any manipulation, AI, I intend to say, manipulation on this deck. It could just barely be photoshopped, and that's absolutely fine. We have absolutely no ethical issues when it comes to Photoshop. Plenty of people do that. I do that as well. Then you look at this and it looks like a collage, and I think to myself, oh, that's a really cool one. I actually really love it. It's a collage. Look at that, it's a collage. And then we come to this card and I'm like, this is 99% of AI decks use this kind of effect. You know what I mean? It's, let me just put it closer to the lens. I kid you not, 99% of AI creator generated decks or images, sorry, not decks, images, actually use this kind of feature, let's call it, or however you want to call it. And so that makes me suspicious. And then I'll go back to the deck and I see, no, this is not AI. And I think to myself, are you sure? Because then, no, definitely not. And then I look at this and I think collage, and I look at this, photography, definitely photography, probably collage, photography. And then I look at this and I'm just starting to, and I look at this one and I think, no, not really. So I've had to go through this deck so many times to understand what I feel about it, and I wish this is, I've actually seen it in another deck, this almost same image, and it wasn't by the same creator, it wasn't by the same author. This card is magnificent, but then again, it does give you, and this is definitely AI. So again, this is personal, so you know, let's keep it a safe and respectful place. It's just me. I do not resonate with that, because I go from, oh my god, this is an amazing card, so beautiful, oh my god, look at that, to, you know, oh, this one here, and I go, that's a bit of a lazy one. So it's just, this deck is just leaving me a bit perplexed. That's all I'm saying. However, it is a beautiful deck. The messages are very interesting. And again, it's a mass market produced deck by Rockpool, which is Australian. For us, it's very cheap. And so if I feel the need, if I see it again on social media, and I think to myself, you were, I need you to give it away, I can easily repurchase it. So this is the Healing Heart Oracle. And this one was kind of a given because I have the mini. I have the mini of the One Unknown Tarot. I use the mini all the time. It's a fantastic deck. I love it. I've got nothing against it. I'm just rehoming the big one because of, it's literally because of logistics. I don't have room. It's a beautiful deck. It's a beautiful, really beautiful packaging. Look at that. I mean, amazing. You know, magnetic wraparound box, and the guidebook is fantastic. I will definitely miss the guidebook, but then again, it's just a beautiful book. But what it's got inside, you know, it's the description is not that deep, so it doesn't go that deeply into the cards. And you know, again, it's beautiful, really beautiful, and the product value is amazing because you got 2 boxes. You know, when it comes to this, it's just amazing. but it's just not, you know, I can't have two. I decided that I don't want to have two decks. I cannot afford to have two decks, two same decks, because of, you know, space reason, and therefore the big one will go to someone that has more room than me. So this is the Wild Unknown Tarot. Now this was the last one for today, so I just gave you a little preview of one of the videos that I'm going to film every month. So if you want to subscribe to my memberships, this will be available, these videos will be available starting from the second tier on my membership and up, and you will have early access to these videos before they will be accessible to the general public, to everyone else. And therefore this will give you time to reach out to me if you want to purchase one of these decks from me. It will include both mass market and indie decks, and in some cases it will also include out of print decks and, you know, the hard to find decks, etc. So there it is. It's one of the advantages of the membership, and the membership will start in the month of September, so stay tuned. Now, thank you so much for staying with me till the end of this video. It really means a lot to me if you like and subscribe, and just, you know, let me know what you think about these decks. And that's all. Thank you so much. Have a great day.